You are listening to the Barely Audible Podcast. We are live. Welcome to the Barely Audible Podcast. I am Justin Romine, your host, alongside our co-host Bearz. Bearz, we're live
Hey, buddy.
we're live and in the flesh.
It feels great to be live in the flesh with the other host of the show. I wonder if we confuse people by people thinking there's one host or two hosts, when in fact it was you and I that both created this. And thank goodness that you're on board. You're like Scotty from Star Trek. If anyone can get anything technically done in a nick of time and save the show, it's Justin R. Romine, an amazing filmmaker, director, father, and just a great friend. And I really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Happy to do our first live. Hopefully some people start joining. We're on Facebook. For some reason, I have not been able to get the live through YouTube to work. This will end up on YouTube at some point, and it'll end up on all of our other platforms: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and eventually YouTube.
One of the things about doing a live show is you never know what's going to happen. I started out in radio many moons ago after I graduated high school. I got a job at the local radio station in Norwich, New York, of all places, upstate New York, WCHN, WKXZ, 50,000 watt radio station. Man, it was like an 18-year-old's dream come true, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So
So what kind of bugs did you run into installing this new software and getting it ready for us?
so mainly the issue was I had to cut ties with our other podcasting people. We were using Podcastle, and they were fine. We weren't really able to go live, and they did have video, but it just wasn't really what we needed. And so I found Riverside FM as our new home. We're linking that through Spotify Creator, and hopefully I got everything worked out. So podcasts have what are called RSS feeds, and I had to basically go into each of the platforms and change the RSS feeds. Originally, I was supposed to be able to go to my Podcastle account and change the feed there, but they don't give a place to do that. So I had to talk to somebody doing basically a chat before they closed down for the night through
Wow.
Riverside FM, and they had to walk me through what I had to do. So they had to basically break the other link, which they did. And now I think we should be able to get all of our new stuff from Riverside to there. So yeah, it took me about 3 hours to get everything going, but
I'm going to talk to the network bosses and see about getting you a raise this year.
that would be nice. Yeah, a raise from nothing would be good.
So Justin, just for the viewers at home, do we have a number for open lines tonight? What's the phone number for open
I
lines?
don't know what that is quite yet. I think people are able to, I guess, go once they're here. They can chat with us, or they can be added to the stream. I think once somebody comes and wants to come in, I can let them in and they can talk to us. I'm supposed to have a phone number, but I haven't been able to find it quite yet.
And do we have a link that we can share on our respective FB pages?
Um, We do. You should be able to access it by. Do you see where it says live record up at the top?
Yes.
Okay. So you can click on that and then click on. No, that's not it.
Mm.
Do you see the invite button to the right,
Mm,
top right?
I do not have an invite button to the top right.
Okay, that's probably because I'm the admin or whatever. Um, I already have it on my Facebook page.
Oh,
You
okay. Let
you
me go
could
over there
go,
and
yeah, go there and share away. Um,
yeah, let me go ahead and do that.
yeah.
So, Justin, tell us about your brush with fame today at Comic Con there in Albuquerque.
So there were a lot of people there from various TV shows and movies. Um, one of the guys from Supernatural, the TV show, was there. I believe his name is Jared Padalecki. He is a favorite of my brother and his kids. They love that show. I've tried to watch it a couple times. He was there. Holly Marie Combs was there. She was in Charmed. Um, let's see. Christy Swanson. She was the
Mhm.
original Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the movie, not the TV show. The movie
Right.
came first. Um, she's been in a lot of stuff too. And then today, the only person I really wanted to meet was Ed Begley Jr., who I grew up watching. This is Spinal Tap. He was one of the original drummers, and one of my favorite shows, movie from when I was a kid, was Transylvania 65000 with him and Jeff Goldblum, and I believe Gina Davis was in that too. Um, so I went. You have to pay to get a picture with him or an autograph, and he didn't charge too much. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. I paid $60. I got Transylvania 65000 um, photo with his autograph on it, and then I got my picture taken with him. Um, so that was pretty cool. He was nice, kind of quiet and reserved. I think he had to go to the bathroom, so he kind of cut out on me pretty quick. But I got to shake his hand and talk to him for a few minutes and
Well, it's a good
tell
thing
him,
you got to shake his hand before he went to the bathroom.
yeah, yeah. He seemed a little confused and a little out of it. So I don't know. He was a hippie at some point, so maybe it was just brain rot. Uh, but
Well,
he could have
if
been
it,
high. But
yeah, maybe.
so
But if it was true, he had to go to the bathroom. Though he's probably not thinking, "I'm going to stay here and be an empathetic listener." He's
yeah,
probably thinking, "What's the shortest distance to relief?"
yeah. Maybe he was hungry. Maybe he was diabetic and had to, get something to eat.
He should have refunded at least $40 to you.
Right?
Do you
Yeah.
think there's any chance of getting Ed on the show?
Probably not. I don't know how to really contact him outside of this. Uh, oh, Cassandra Peterson was there, Elvira.
Oh, nice. She's a
Uh,
really interesting person, actually.
she is. She's really sweet, and
Yeah.
I had met her. I've met her before, and she was really nice. Josephine has my partner has a Elvira special edition doll, and I offered to stand in line for her because her line was the
Uh,
longest there. But
that was sweet of you.
she didn't want to pay $100 for it, so so we didn't do that. I, but it's good. I didn't really want to stand in line for hours anyway. But you know, it is what it is.
So, how do you feel about doing a live podcast. Personally, I think it's exciting. It's fantastic. And as we get more listeners and more viewers, the open lines are going to undoubtedly be very, very interesting to entertain calls and chat with the
especially
people that listen to us.
yeah, especially if we don't know who's who's breaking through. Um, but yeah,
And
we
do we have any way to control perhaps potential troublemakers out there?
yeah, I can just boot them.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, I can just
But
boot 'em.
otherwise, we entertain all kinds of questions and calls and interaction with our customers, as it were.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
So
waiting.
our esteemed producer just handed me this list. Can you see me in chat? I am talking to you too.
I see her in the chat. Yes.
Excellent. And we're talking about Lydia, our producer, who has made this really the whole podcast possible through a generous grant to our amazing podcast.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without her. She definitely is helping us stay afloat and pay for these different platforms that we have to record and all that. Because having a podcast isn't really free. You have to record it on something. You have to be able to have a platform to basically spring off to uh, the other platforms to be able to basically use those RSS feeds and be able to have our podcast go live on those when they're done. So hopefully this is all going to work out. I spent 3 hours working on all that today. So it's been a day. I've been up
Well,
since midnight. I had to work last night.
Ooh,
So
dang. So, just for the people at home, let's refresh their memories if they're not familiar with you. What kind of work are you currently involved in?
I am a editor for TV news. I work for Channel 13 KRQE in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been there for 8 years. So that's my, I can't really say day job, but
And also, you're a tremendously talented filmmaker and director. Would you like to share a little bit about your newest project?
I have a couple projects in the pipeline. So um, it's basically kind of, I have the big one is it came out of the sky. Uh, that we just finished up um, post production last year, about I want to say May or somewhere in there, somewhere like that. So that is in the film festival circuit right now. It's basically we've decided to, because we had some interest from some actors, particularly Bill Oberst Jr., one of my favorite independent film actors, wants to be in it. So we're going to turn the sequels. I wrote a part 2 and a part 3. We're going to turn basically all of those into a feature film, and we're going to put together the whole movie. We'll probably shoot, I'm hoping, in the fall, early fall, late summer, somewhere around there. There's another project I'm working on. It has a working title. Um, I can't even remember the name. I can look. Sanctioned Stalker, I think, is what it's called. And that was written by a friend of mine by the name of Rod Smith. He has been writing screenplays and doing smaller film stuff for a while. And he has been writing scripts. His wife, I believe it's his wife, is an actress too, and she's really good. And so he's been writing parts and stuff for her, and then somebody else is taking those scripts and making them into films. He contacted me about a month ago and asked if I would be interested in co-directing it with him. because he kind of wants somebody that has been there and done that before. So I've got the script read. It's pretty fun. It's kind of he calls it an action movie. I kind of call it a dramatic thriller.
Mm.
Maybe it's all three. Uh, there's some interesting gunplay and blood effects that we're going to have to do, and even a head we're going to have to explode that gets shot in the
Oh
head.
man,
So that's going to be fun. I got a guy that knows how to do that stuff, so that'll be fun. Um,
is he making you pay him in cash?
Hopefully, he's going to pay me. Um, I
That's
don't.
always good when you get paid.
Yeah, so it's not.
We actually had Bill on one of our podcasts. What was it, number 6
Bill was our.
or 8th?
He was like our third.
Wow, time
Yeah,
flies, man.
'cause we had the first episode was just you and I. Second episode we had Stu Walleen.
Yes,
Um,
dude.
yeah, and then I think Bill was our third one. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, we have 12 altogether. This would be our 13th. So
So, did you ever think we'd get this far, having like 13 podcasts? And to recap for the people at home or wherever you happen to be, would you like to share a little bit about our backstory, how the podcast actually came about and its origins?
well, you and I have been friends for quite a while, and
Since
we
the late
just
50s.
yeah, and we've been talking about various projects of mine. You've always been kind of a champion of everything that I do, and I appreciate that. It's nice to have somebody on your side, you know. Um, so we've been talking. You were wanting to start your own podcast, and I had one before. Briefly, I think we only got 3 episodes in, and me and the other guy basically had differing schedules, so we couldn't really do it. Um, I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was working at the TV station, and I was teaching film for the University of New Mexico. And, it was quite difficult to find a day where we could sit down and pound these out. So we only
Man,
got
I've
about 3 in.
Man,
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do a podcast ever since I lived in Oregon. And I lived in Oregon for about 6 years doing the whole van life thing. And I thought it would be just a fantastic opportunity to do a podcast from a van, from touring and just, photographing the coast. But of course, there's something called divine timing, and obviously it wasn't meant to be then. And this is the opportune time for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like we've got a second viewer. Hello and welcome, whoever you are.
Hello, viewer number 2.
I'm not sure who it is. I'm not sure if I can even find that. This is all brand new to me, so bear with us while we kind of figure this all out.
Oh, it's Tammy, Lydia's friend, our friend of our producer.
Hello, Tammy. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us here on the big show tonight. And at the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a raffle, and it's free to everyone who joins. Justin's going to pull a coupon out of the hat. We don't know if it's for KFC or Taco Bell or if it's for your own kitchen, but nonetheless, everyone's a winner here tonight.
Always.
And welcome to the debut Barely Audible podcast that's live on the air, happening right now as you hear and see it. And Justin was just talking about how Barely Audible came about. Would you like to finish that?
Yeah, I could finish that. So man, at least a year ago, you were talking to me about wanting to start a podcast, and I said, well, I have a little bit of experience. I've never been the one doing all the recording and all the editing. The other guy I worked with did that. So I basically just would call in or follow a link on my computer, and he would patch me in, and we would do our thing. Um, Bill Oberst was on that one as well. Um, as was, man, I can't even remember. I'll get back to that. But anyway, about a year ago, we were talking, and I said, well, if you need a co-host or someone to get in it with you, I'd be more than happy to. And um, then we kind of just put it off month by month. Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah, we'll get to it. Yeah. We're busy. We're busy. And then we finally just pulled the trigger about 12 episodes ago. And so we were going to do it every other week, but we decided to do it every week. And now we're going to be doing it twice a week. We're going to try and go live every Sunday. And we'll also have a podcast drop every Monday. I usually edit them early and have them up by Saturdays, but by every Monday we should have a new episode as well as a live. So there'll be 2 episodes a week. So we'll see how this live goes, and if we get enough people to tune in, we'll come back next week.
Yeah, and I think it's a great idea. You've certainly done a great job here getting this up and running this evening. And there's nothing more pleasurable than doing a live call-in show with open lines. If it warrants it, we'll just expand the show and expand the hours that we're on. And frankly, we'll talk about anything and everything. Justin has a wide and extensive background and interest in almost anything, obviously including film.
Mm-hmm.
UFOs, paranormal, just like myself. And he and I have had a number of paranormal experiences throughout our lives. But that's not the only thing we're limited to, certainly.
Yeah, that's for sure. We like to talk a little bit about everything.
While
So
you were up and getting the software together and integrating it, our producer Lydia and I took a walk downstairs and stretched our legs, got some coffee, and we kept checking in with you to see when we might actually go on the air. And
yeah,
lo and behold, here we are. And we're really lucky to have a producer that cares about art and about seeing our success.
mm-hmm.
She's a good friend of mine. She's a phenomenal human being. She's really an arts benefactor, and we're just very, very grateful to her for even wanting to be involved to this extent.
Yeah,
And again, she's made the whole podcast possible, and that's an amazing friend to have, really. A friend who has no strings attached and just wants to see us succeed.
yeah, yeah. She's she's been great to us, and definitely love having her on board as our producer. And you have to bear with me. I'm sharing the link on Facebook over and
Well,
over again.
we are bears, so we can bear with each other. And in fact, Lydia gave me this amazing digital camera for Christmas. It's a Canon R8 full frame sensor, and it's an astonishing piece of technology. And I can't wait to get out in nature with it more and do some more landscapes and nature photography.
I think you're getting a new lens soon too.
Yeah, I'm getting the 16 millimeter. It's a prime lens. It's a fast lens. It'll allow me to shoot at night a bit more successfully than with the kit lens. Then I think after that, I might go for the 50 millimeter. Although the reviews on the 50 millimeter, they're sort of mixed. And I generally like to get a 35 millimeter prime lens with whatever DSLR body I'm using. I used to be brand specific, brand loyal to Nikon, and I would have chosen Nikon, but it looked like they were going to go out of business at any time, and it didn't look as though they would support their products. And Canon's been around forever. I started out with a Canon TX 35 millimeter camera back when I was 18 years old. In fact, I bought it when I worked at the radio station. I put it on layaway, as I shared with you before, and it's what I used to photograph Allen Ginsberg's gatherings with. We'd go out to Allen Ginsberg's farm when I was like 18, 19 for solstice gatherings and winter parties and where I met the great photographer Robert Frank out there. And it's interesting. Karl Lagerfeld was a friend of mine before he passed away, and we both discovered that we started photography the same year, 1987. It seems as though he had hired an ad agency to come out and shoot a collection for Chanel in Paris, and the guy never showed up. The
Mm.
dude just never showed up, never called. And apparently Carl thought he could do it himself, which he became a very successful and award-winning photographer. And he was a genius, not only a genius designer but a genius photographer too. And he and I were going to do a show in Asheville of nothing but wheelie bins that he would have photographed in Paris, and I myself in this country. And I didn't necessarily at the time think that the city was um, ready for an exhibition of wheelie bins, trash bins.
Mm.
But it would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Do you do any photography, like still photography?
I used to quite a bit. I used to work at a newspaper in high school, and I went out and bought this old um, Canon film camera, and I love that thing. It weighed about 300 pounds, but
Yeah, that's
um,
right.
yeah. And at the newspaper, the Belvedere Daily Republican is what it was called. They had a section that we would do on Mondays for kids in high school to kind of have their own page. And so we would write our own articles and do our own thing. And um, I had an endless supply of film. They gave us as much film as we ever wanted. So and it was all black and white. I don't think they ever did color on the newspaper. Um, but they let me write whatever the hell I wanted to. I'd write all kinds of weird shit or um, talk about concerts I was going to and stuff like that. Um, I wrote one article. They called them school improvement days. And we basically had a half day. So we would go half day and they'd let us out before lunch. And me and my friends would all take off and go to the buffet in the next town over, and Hometown Buffet. I think that's a chain, so they're still out there, I think. Um, and so we would go there and feast. We'd stay there for 2 hours, just eating and talking and hanging out. And um, I wrote an article about it because it was just something that we kind of did and had fun doing. And then one of the interesting things was we would take, if somebody was up and away from the table getting food or a drink or whatever, if they left their coat behind, we would take Jello cubes and put them in their pockets, in their coat pockets. And we would all sit there, the ones that knew that happened, we would sit there and then we would just every couple minutes say, gee, I'm so glad I don't have Jello cubes in my pockets, until that person eventually found them in their pocket. So that was kind of a nice, fun game we all played. And so I wrote an article about it, talked about the Jello cubes. And the next time we went, we were standing in line to pay to go to our table. And I saw behind the cashier's desk, framed on the wall, that article I wrote. And so I asked them, who put that up there? And the manager came out and he's like, I did. And we had our favorite they had waitresses. They're not really waitresses because they don't bring you food, but they kind of clear your plates and take your plates. And there was an old lady by the name of Dolores. She was probably in her 80s. And we always would ask to be sat in her section because she loved us. We had a blast talking to her, and she was mentioned in the article. So they had that framed on the wall, and then the manager came out, and he was like, "Man, that's so cool that you wrote that for us." And um, you guys are all free today. And so, there's
Wow.
probably at least 10 of us. And then he slipped me on the way out, he slipped me a bunch of coupons. So I had
Nice.
free coupons to go there anytime I wanted. So that was kind of a fun thing we did. Um, and yeah, it was cool working for the TV station. And well, the newspaper. I'm sorry, I've worked at TV stations and newspapers. Um, so that was pretty fun. And I had an endless supply of film. I probably still have film from there somewhere in boxes somewhere because I had so much of it. Um,
Man, the quality of film is amazing. I love digital for multiple reasons, and I still love film. People oftentimes would ask me which is better. Well, it's like saying which is better, night or day. They both have their advantage, and they're both wonderful.
hmm
For me, digital is great to learn on. Film, however, it doesn't interpret anything. It records photons just as they are. It's not The light isn't being reinterpreted by a computer, you know? So
Yeah.
what you're getting an image of is the actual thing that you're looking at, as opposed to a computer's idea of what it is, and it has to reassemble what it thinks it's viewing based on, infinite parameters. So in film, for me, there's a depth and there's a warmth to it, much
Mm,
like vinyl. And on film, there's enough space for the profound to occur. Like it almost becomes a third sort of collaborator or a third type of entity. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Sure.
If you ever get bored and need a job, let me know because I've got a connection down there at the Blossburg Beacon.
Some pudding foot.
Yeah, Harold Puddinfoot Brown, good friend of mine. I'm sure he could get you in on the, sports desk maybe just to start.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of the Blossburg Beacon, aren't you?
I read just about every article.
Can't blame you there. Those
Yeah.
those articles are quite fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Blossburg Beacon on Facebook. So run to it while you can, while it's still free, because after this year, who knows how many subscribers they'll have, and they'll have to charge just for the bandwidth, won't they, Justin?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you have anything interesting coming up this week?
Um, yeah, well, tomorrow we're going to record an episode with um, my friend Cameron. He is a blues musician, Cameron Kimbrough. He is the grandson of blues legend Junior Kimbrough.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so he's going to join us tomorrow. We'll record that. That'll be our first recorded video podcast. Um, a lot of you are probably listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I think Spotify does have video. Um, but a lot of you will be listening and not watching, and it's just our two ugly mugs. So you're not missing too much. But
Not missing too much at all. That's right.
yeah, but we'll have
And in fact, my Botox is failing. Look, I've got to even my Botox out here. Of course, I went down to that guy who has an office not too far from the laundromat. $5 injections,
there you
but it
go.
looks pretty good for $5, doesn't it?
Yeah, not too bad.
Almost like new.
Almost.
Yes, we like to do improv here, folks. And if you want to join us for a spot of improv, let me know. Justin, my acting teacher, I.J. Dollinger, was an amazing actor and improv guy. He came out of World War II. In fact, he stayed in Paris after World War II for a couple of years, and he sold his Vespa before he came back to the States
Yeah.
to Philip Glass, of all people.
Oh wow.
The great modern composer Philip
Yeah.
Glass. Yeah, and IJ came out of vaudeville back in the day, and pretty much where I got my acting training. I'm not a great actor. In fact, I pretty much can't act my way out of a paper bag, but I do enjoy wordplay, like the Marx Brothers and that sort of wit.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Do you like to act?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing it for a long time. It's I really just started doing it because um, I had read somewhere. I think it was something Alfred Hitchcock said, and he said if you want to direct, you need to know how to act.
Yeah, that's a
So
that's a great point.
so I decided to put myself in front of the camera a little bit and start doing projects and stuff. So I've been in a handful of things. One of my favorites was a movie by the name of Doctor Spine, and that was a low budget indie horror movie that a friend of mine made. Um, had a lot of interesting people in it. Um, uh, Martin Sheen's brother, Estevez. What's his first name?
Oh, Emilio.
No, that's his son. His
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
brother,
yeah. Bro,
Joe Estevez.
Joe.
Joe Estevez was in it, um, as was Larry Thomas. And Larry Thomas is known as the Soup Nazi from the Seinfeld show. No soup for you. He was in it. And then a bunch of friends and people that worked on my movies back in Illinois were in it as well. I got a call one day. I think it was the day before the shoot. Might have been 2 days. And John Wesley Norton is the director, and he asked if I would come and play a bartender by the name of Stiffy. And I wore an eye patch. And an interesting little story there. We shot. He shot scenes kind of out of order, and one week he'd shoot something, and then a month later he'd shoot something, and um, I had long hair like I do now, and we shot the scene where I'm in the bar, and Michael Wexler's character comes in. Michael Wexler is an actor that I've worked with and stuff, and he has passed away. He got hit by a car in a
Hmm.
crosswalk in Chicago and has passed away. He's a great, great dude. I loved him dearly, and we worked together on some things. And um, he and I got to share a couple scenes in this movie. And he comes up to the bar and is asking me questions, and I slam my hand on the bar and kind of yell at him a little bit, and I'm a little intimidating. And I got this eye patch, and I'm wearing a. I don't think I was wearing that shirt then, so I'll get to the shirt in a minute. Um, and then, yeah, I piss him off, and he kind of goes on his way. And um, a couple weeks later, my great aunt was diagnosed with cancer,
Hmm.
um, and she was going through treatment, and she lost her hair and all of that. And in solidarity, I shaved my head for her, and um, didn't really think anything of it. And then I get a call from John Wesley Norton again, and he said, "We're going to shoot your other part." And I'm like, "Oh shit, dude, I forgot. I totally forgot." And he's like, "I know, I saw your pictures. You don't have any hair, but we're just going to slap a wig on you." And so he decided to get creative. Um, and Wexler's character takes me into like a warehouse or something, and chains me up, and he basically like he scalps me and yanks my
Hmm.
hair off. And so I sat down in special effects makeup, and she built Denise was her name. She built a ridge around my head of like silicone and latex, and then she like painted the top of it red and black, and
Hmm.
you know, and then we put the wig on, and then he pulls the wig off while I'm sitting there. I'm wearing a T-shirt, a black T-shirt that says "fucked" on it, because that's basically the where I was. That was the situation I was in, and so
Sounds like
right,
every barber I've ever been to as a kid.
yeah. And then right before the take, they lifted the thing off, the wig off, and dumped a bunch of blood on my head,
Mm.
and put the wig back on, and then he pulls it off, and the blood's pouring down my face, and um, it turned out really cool. You can find that movie. It might be streaming somewhere. Doctor Spine by John Wesley Norton. Definitely try and check it out and find it. Um, it's a really fun movie. Um,
So for the people at home who want to get into acting like that, because um, if a director gives me motivation, I can usually carry out the part fairly well. But I find if the director doesn't know what the motivation is, it's really difficult oftentimes for the actors to actually get into the role and to become the role. Does that make sense?
um, Sort of.
Or
I
they're
have a little different approach to it.
mm-hmm,
Is it's the actor's job, not the director's job, to find the motivation,
mm-hmm,
because they're the ones that are conveying whatever you need. So a director should just mainly kind of hold the actor's hand and point them in the right direction instead of telling them you need to do this and that. And so one thing I learned in film school uh, was to let your actors be. And if they're not doing what you want, you need to learn how to talk to them the right way. You can't say, be more sad or be more
right,
happy. That's not gonna, and so what I like to do is I'll sit down with the actor. And so um, I'll give an example. I went up to Madison, Wisconsin with my cousin Keith. We both went to film school together, and um, graduated around the same time. And um, we we met a guy up in Madison, Wisconsin, that was teaching acting classes for the university there. And he asked if we would come and talk to the class and stuff like that. And so we went up a couple times. His name was Kevin Croak. He's also dead, also
mm,
croaked. Um, he was a really interesting actor. He had gray hair, and he looked kind of like a mobster. You put him in a suit and he kind of shined. Um, and so we went up there, and I remember talking to one of the actors, and he said, um, I'm really trying to find, my motivation. Um, I'm angry, and I'm kind of getting angrier at this other actor, and they were just doing monologues. So I took him out of the classroom, and we sat down and started talking. And um, I said, "Can you tell me about a time when you were so mad at somebody you could have thrown them out of a window?" And so he started talking about this boss that he had, and I said, "Okay, now I want you to picture your words as you're speaking. You're getting closer and closer to him. You grab him by the scruff, and you throw him out the window of
mm-hmm.
a 20-story building." And he sat there and said, "All right, okay." He went into the class and did his monologue, and it was like 20 times better than the time that he delivered it before. Um, and so I like to do stuff like that when I'm talking to people. Come here, honey. My daughter is wanting to come. Come here.
Oh,
Come on, Ari.
there she
Come here
is.
and say hi to the people.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Daddy.
You gotta talk right here. That's the microphone.
Daddy.
This is Ari Bella, my beautiful 4-year-old. She's going to
Welcome to
be
the show, Ari.
she's going to be 5 in less than a month. Next month,
Yes.
on the 10th, you turn 5.
I'm gonna be sick.
You're gonna be sick on your birthday?
Next day.
Oh, the next day.
It's
Because
Well,
you're
it's
gonna
always
eat
going to
too
be
much
sick the
cake?
day after.
No.
You're
I
gonna
don't
eat,
want to eat the cake. I want to eat watermelon.
you don't eat watermelon?
Not cakes.
She's so sweet. I love you.
And that.
Okay. Mosey along.
Daddy, my tummy hurts.
Your tummy hurts. Okay, don't eat nothing then. So, yeah.
Hey, you need to charge this with you.
Yeah.
Why are you not doing that?
She's so funny.
She's awesome.
And the other one's in the other room being antisocial. So,
There's a time for that too, just to be a hermit. So
yeah. Well,
I'm over here on the border of New York and Pennsylvania, and it's been quite an interesting sort of safari finding good food. There are two Chinese buffets here that I would not recommend,
yeah.
and there's a restaurant near one of the Chinese buffets called Beeman's, and I ordered the meatloaf there about 6 weeks ago, and it was like a plate of cat food. I mean, it was absolutely horrible and
Oh,
disgusting.
no. That's
Do
no
you
fun.
think that's because ever since the virus that people just aren't up to par cooking anymore, or do you think it's just that they were poorly trained, or what do you attribute? I mean, you live in Albuquerque where there's a ton of good food. In fact, it's better than good. It's profound. I know it is.
Yeah.
So do you think it has to do more with location or people's general awareness of what it takes to make a dish? I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be made well.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of the food here hasn't really changed. Some of the places have. Um, but I think what's kind of happened is with the virus 4 years ago, almost 5, um, they lost a lot of workers.
Mm-hmm.
So, people didn't come back to their jobs when they were waiting tables or cooking or something like that. Because a lot of them were laid off. And so they were collecting unemployment and all that. And so I think a lot of people decided to not go back to work because they were getting unemployment. And they're like, why am I going to go work a job where I'm in a hot kitchen and, where I could just be sitting at home collecting
True.
a paycheck? And so I think when they started rehiring, they were just trying to get bodies in there. And so they hired whoever. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to take a hit, when it comes to getting experienced, cooks and waiters and stuff like that. So, it's just, I don't know if that's the exact reason. I think it definitely is something that may be attributed to, service kind of going downhill. And also, food is so much more expensive than it used to be. Even fast food. I shouldn't be spending $40 at Taco Bell.
Exactly. I
So
think we should point out too that we're poised up on a night before a historic event takes place in America. Tomorrow is the inauguration, is it not?
unfortunately, yes.
And no one really knows what the future holds or where it's going to go from here. So there's a lot of heavy energy out there tonight, and I understand DC is already full of protesters. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, we ran a couple stories in the news this morning. I had to put together a package for um, from CBS, and they did a story on it. They're actually moving it to indoors, the first time since 1985, I think, when it was 7 degrees and Ronald Reagan was taking office.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the first time it's been indoors because it's supposed to be, I think, it was 7 degrees when Reagan did his inauguration. I think it's going to be even colder in DC. And so uh, they moved it indoors, and then there's like an overflow in one of the buildings where I think the Washington DC, whoever their basketball team is, I don't know. I don't follow basketball, but wherever they play, that's going to be like the holding area. So at least people will be indoors. A couple people that were interviewed in that package, um, said that it was worth being in 5-degree weather to see him. They would stand there and take the cold, I guess. So I wouldn't. But even if it was a president I wanted to see, I wasn't gonna stand in the cold. I'm sorry, but not happening.
And have you heard anything more about these drones or UFOs? And what's your belief about them? Personally, I feel it's some sort of you know just kind of soft disclosure of saying, hey, there's something in our airspace. I've seen some footage of some of them. Some of them look like flying triangles, and not necessarily any drones that we would have access to. Do you have any feelings, or have you heard anything much about them?
No, we haven't. We haven't talked about them in quite a while. So yeah, they kind of swept that under the rug when all this other stuff was going on with the president and Diddy and all that other shit going on.
And
So
let's not forget the L.A. fires.
yeah, that too. Yeah, I hope they get that figured out soon. So many
It's
people have
completely
lost
heartbreaking.
so much. Yeah, yeah, and it's what are you going to do? We had an interesting story yesterday on the newscast. Actor Bob Odenkirk, who plays Saul in Better Call Saul, and he was in Breaking Bad as well. He's a Chicago boy, and so I've always liked him and followed him. Mr. Show is a really fun TV show way back in the day that he was in with David Cross. He is helping out like a shelter for animals. He's helped save 260 animals
Nice.
um, from there, chartering a plane and stuff like that for them. And he has some interesting ties here to Albuquerque. He actually owns a home up in Santa Fe. And you can read articles and stuff where he talks about he loves just walking around Albuquerque. He just loves it here. So he's a really cool guy. I actually was just listening to his podcast episode on Smartless, the podcast with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. It's a really fun podcast that they have a guest every week, kind of like we do. But their little change up is that one person invites the guest and does not tell the other hosts who it is. And
Interesting.
so they don't know until they come up on the screen and they can see who it is. So yeah, that's interesting. He's a really cool dude, and it was nice listening to his podcast. It's like 3 or 4 years old because I just found Smartless, the podcast, recently, and so I started at the beginning, and I'm maybe a year into it. So there's like 3 more seasons of it.
Oh,
Um,
nice. I should check that out. And
I
I've been
rec
meaning to.
I
Yeah, go
recommend it.
ahead.
Yeah, I
I've,
recommend it.
we get so excited here, ladies and gentlemen, that we just want to blurt out questions, and that's something we're learning to deal with and flow with. I also wanted to ask you about, have you seen Christopher's movie where he plays Orson Welles?
No, I have not seen it, although I have seen the pictures. I'm not sure what movie that is. I can't remember who made it, but no, we're talking about our friend Christopher Coppola. Um, he's an interesting cat too. He just moved to Italy to be with his lady friend, and we're so happy for him. He was
Absolutely.
having a rough time the past year or so, and Christopher's a great dude. He let me crash on his couch when I was out in L.A. or Beverly Hills, um, and I've known him for about 15 years or so. I met him through my friend Bill Nevins. Bill introduced him and I because I was going to film school in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Christopher was wanting to do one of his Project Accessible Hollywood festivals there. And Christopher hired me to be a festival coordinator, and I basically kind of booked the buildings that we were going to be in, and um, helped teach people how to use their cameras, or they're actually phones. Yeah, I think Nokia or one of the phone companies donated a bunch of phones to Christopher so people could shoot video with their phones. And then they would take that footage, and we had a computer lab where they could sit down and edit it. And so he wanted people that didn't know what they were doing, um, to kind of come and do his little challenge and shoot little films and put together stuff. And I would teach them how to use the cameras and then how to use the software when they were editing um, their piece. And so Christopher and I have gotten along really well. And then um, I went out to California to try and make things happen. And Christopher had um, introduced me to a couple friends of his. And one of them, by the name of Lee, he was Lee Murphy. Um, he was wanting to make a movie called Escape from Clown Prison. And he was hiring me as like the first AD to kind of help get it off the ground and be there on set when he was putting together his movie. We never ended up making that movie, but I made a really good friend in Lee. Lee is a fantastic writer. He has a series of books, the George Kodiak books, and they all kind of deal with cryptozoology, and one of them's about Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and a bunch of really interesting things. Those George Kodiak books are really fun. And he usually sends me his books as they come out. He just sent me one about a month and a half ago called The Hen House. And it's about a werewolf inside of a prison. And so we were kind of talking about it one day, and I was like, I haven't read it yet, but I imagine you don't have very many locations. And he said, no, not really. And I said, well, we should look at making that into a movie. So he sent me the book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm kind of backed up on books right now because I have another friend that has sent me his book called Spider Seeds. That's my friend Dave Talker. He is a prolific writer as well, and we're going to have him on the podcast. I just kind of wanted to read his book first, so I have to get to that book too, and then we'll eventually get Leon as well to talk about all of his.
Looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah.
Christopher many moons ago had me on his old radio show where we wound up talking for about 5 hours, and that's when you and I sort of became friends, isn't it?
Yeah, because I was on an episode too, and so I think we listened to each other's episodes and kind of found each other, and it's another friend to add to the bank. And Christopher's a great dude. I appreciate everything he's done for me. He's helped guide me in certain ways, and is always also championing my creative endeavors. And Christopher, you probably recognize the last name Coppola. He is the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, older brother to Nicolas Cage. And it's so weird being in Christopher's presence because he and Nicholas sound very similar. And Christopher will make a point to tell you, Nicholas sounds like me because he's the older brother. And so it's so weird when I actually hear his voice because it's just like, man, is Nicolas Cage here? It's so weird.
And also, Christopher's done a lot to empower people, to democratize the power of storytelling, to put it into the hands of the individual with whatever means that they have. And you don't need an expensive, digital camera. You just need something that records video to begin telling your story, or even audio for that matter. And Christopher's done this for thousands of people over the past, 20 years, right?
Yeah, and Project Accessible Hollywood is where it kind of started. He also did a thing out here. I think that's kind of where PaFest is what we call it, kind of started. Um, he was also kind of responsible for getting the movies to come out here to Albuquerque, and now we're kind of a film hub. And I think Christopher helped guide that in some way. Um, and unfortunately, the business here has kind of slowed down. And a lot of people that I know that are in the union haven't worked for about 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, so not really sure what's going on, but um, I was trying to get in the union myself, and I never heard back from them, and I think it's just because
Oh,
there's no
wow.
work. So yeah, so it's just been kind of up in the air, and just trying to stay afloat. One of my friends, Damian, he used to work for Christopher. He lives out here, and he made a lot of money last year. And now he was telling me recently that yeah, he's like, I haven't worked. I haven't worked for months. So I hope all that changes and people get back to work. Is they're making movies all over now, but Albuquerque used to be a destination because the tax incentive. They had a huge tax incentive here to get people out here. Netflix just built a studio out here. Um, and then somebody else, I want to say Hulu or one of the other streamers, are I think had already bought the property and are coming out here as well to do originals. So hope all that changes. A lot of people out of work here.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to coming out and visiting you in Albuquerque and getting some good food. And tonight I invited Tony Ferguson when he comes to the States to
Yeah.
come visit because I want to go to Centralia, Pennsylvania. Now, what makes that town interesting isn't necessarily the subterranean fires that have been burning since 1962. Apparently, and I've always thought this to be the case out there, there's some sort of presence, this underlying presence, this entity, this spirit, and the woods seem to be haunted, and there seem to be a lot of paranormal activities that happen. Are they connected to the fires under in the mines? I don't know, but I thought he'd be the guy to have come out and go investigate with me. And I'd like to invite
Yeah.
you too if you're in the mood for it.
Yeah, if I can make it happen, I will. Uh, Tony was a guest of ours. He's a paranormal investigator out of England, and he was a great guest. We talked about all kinds of interesting things, and yeah, he's just a really cool dude. I'm glad that he decided to come on the podcast, and it's probably an 8 hour difference, I think, for us. So it was nice of him to either stay up or get up early, whichever he did. Um, just typing here, trying to get some more people into our show.
Did you ever have any Bigfoot encounters, Justin, out in the wilds?
No, I have not. Um, I keep trying to see him. Uh, I I'm on the fence whether I believe he exists or not because there's um, a lot of things pointing to saying no. As you can see, I have my Sasquatch here. Um,
Yes.
uh, and it's I don't know. I'd love to see one sometime. Um, it's I'm definitely open to it. I know you have had experiences. Why don't you tell us? I remember you telling
Well,
me a story about pine cones years ago.
well,
Do you
not
remember
only
that?
pine cones and pebbles being tossed at the house. I used to live on this property that was bordered by state land, and Man, at first I just thought it was squirrels, just,
Mm.
running around doing squirrely things, right, folks? Because squirrels tend to make all kinds of noise in the roof. So that's what I attributed it to, until it became rhythmic. To my knowledge, squirrels don't have a sense of rhythm, and I apologize to any squirrels who are percussionists out there who might have a sense of rhythm. And the long story short was, um, I actually began to leave them apples up on a tree stump. I had a garden that was terraced and reinforced by retaining wall. So I left some apples up on a tree stump, and I didn't know if bears came to eat them or deer or whatever. Then one night in November, I went out of the house. It was sort of that inky purple color that November nights often are when it's a bit cold out, but not too cold, those perfect November nights right before it gets really chilly. My van was parked at a diagonal in front of the garage. I come out of the front of the house, down the steps of the deck, and I noticed something weird. Now, my cargo van, on the driver's side, the mirror must have sat up about 6 feet maybe. And I thought, what is going on over there? And I thought someone was trying to break into my van and get my tools or something, but that wasn't the case because there was no noise. But I did recognize this outline of this, well, as I know now, this very large, tall creature. It was dark in appearance, and we locked eyes. I mean, the whole thing was just kind of unusual and weird. And I went to approach just to see if it was someone trying to get into the van. It steps around the front, and I look at it, and I immediately recognize the outline, the figure, the being as Sabi or Sasquatch. And we looked at each other for a good minute and a half. And when we both realized what kind of experience we were having, he turns around and literally, I've never heard of a Sasquatch being able to jump as high or as far as this one did. It had to jump up a 5.5 foot retaining wall, then another 45 degrees to run off into the state land. But by gosh, by golly, that's what it did. And it was the most amazing encounter I've ever had with such a being because there was almost this peacefulness. It was almost like one of us was going to stop and say, hey, do you want to come over for dinner? That sort of thing. But then there was that moment, that realization like, hey, we're not of the same species and maybe this shouldn't be happening. And yeah, I understand what you are. And I think they're telepathic because I could always sense them after that. And when I walked around the lower, it was, the state land was up on a hill and there was this ridge. And I could always tell when they were present because when they walked, you could feel the tremors. You could actually feel the earth move, as it were. There were tremors when they walked. And I was acutely aware of them. And I think there was a family of them up there.
Oh,
And
wow.
I understand now that when they tossed pebbles onto the tin roof, it was a sign of playfulness almost. And I've watched a number of these videos on YouTube about Sasquatch and so on, about how people fear them. I think personally, I think Sasquatch, I kind of hold them really dear to my spirit because I talked to some Cherokee friends out there, and they're like, that was a real special thing that they would even reveal themselves to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they call them old man of the forest out there. And ever since then, I just felt kind of accepted by them. And I'll never divulge where these experiences were or where these encounters were because I wouldn't want to betray them. You know how we like our privacy. When we want to be alone, we want to be alone. We don't want to be hounded by whatever the equivalent of Sasquatch hunters are, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a number of encounters with the Sasquatch folks across America. My partner at the time, she and I were out in Oregon, and we used to van life and enjoy, just being outdoor folks and living on the 101 and finding these amazing camping areas. Not too far outside of Yachats in Oregon, there's a road called Bob Cummins Road. And I'm not going to tell you which turn to take or where exactly. But we went up there to look for a camping spot. And these huge logs had been thrown all over, man. And there was this intense energy of just this chaos and maybe this. There was just some really upset energy up there. And you could tell there had been some kind of encounter. And it felt like Sasquatch may have driven out some people who were less than respectful, These
Yeah.
huge boulders that were moved around. And I had been up there before that, and it didn't look anything like some sort of war zone. But that night it did. And we made the decision to stay there overnight. I had fallen asleep in the truck. She had stayed awake, and she had some encounters with some creatures with red eyes, which I think now were probably dogmen or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And when you go out into the wilds, even if you're not looking for paranormal experiences, you just may stumble upon or encounter something that doesn't make sense to you, or you're certainly not going to see in the world of humans, as we say. But
Yeah.
don't be afraid. And if anyone does encounter Sasquatch, and certainly don't provoke them, don't go knocking on the trees, man. That's disrespectful to them. Carry in your heart love and not fear, because they can be your allies, and they will watch out for you too, as long as they know what your intentions are. And just don't disturb these gentle people of the forest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Off my
Absolutely.
soapbox now.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. This has been fun.
It surely has.
We'll definitely come back next week, and hopefully we'll get some more people to tune in. And I think Sunday's a good day for it, so we'll do that. I had read there are certain times that are better than others, but I think a Sunday's a good time to do it. So we'll be
Agreed.
back. We'll be back next Sunday. So
Hey, Justin, for the people playing at home, should they encounter you out in public, in Albuquerque or wherever they run into you, how much do you charge for an autograph?
my autographs are free.
Excellent. Excellent. Do you think it will stay that way forever?
No. No. I'll charge $60 like Ed Begley Jr. charged me today.
And hopefully you won't have to go to the bathroom and not pay attention to the fan.
Yep. So,
Hey, thank you, man, for everything you do for us. I greatly appreciate it. I love you. You're a great human being, and thank you for being part of my family.
absolutely. You've been listening to the Barely Audible Podcast. Thanks for joining us live.